It was a 747, a big airplane. Both teams were on the same plane. We went to Kansas City, and that's where we boarded. And we left out of there, and I think we returned to Kansas City. And I know on the way back we stopped in Anchorage in the middle of the night. I don't remember on the way over whether we stopped in Anchorage to refuel or not. We probably did. And and of course on the way over it was fairly amicable because neither team had lost. And on the way back it wasn't bad, but it was a little more tense because we'd won the game. And kind of a strange setup over there. We practiced on a field where they didn't line the field. It was an artificial field, but they put strips of tape down for 5-yard markers. And so we practiced there for a couple days. And one of the memories I have was that we would get on the bus, and I'd tell the bus driver, okay, it's time to go to practice or wherever, and he'd always smile very politely and nod, and he'd sit there. And then I'd wait for 5 minutes. I'd go up and tap him on the shoulder. I said, let's go now. And he'd smile and nod and sit there. And sometimes we'd sit there for 20, 30 minutes, just sit there. And apparently there was a dispatcher, and this guy was not going to move till the dispatcher told him. And so it was a little different from that standpoint. There was some food that was a little odd, you know. They eat, I think like the head of a pig and, chicken feet. So some of our players were probably not getting their normal diet, but it wasn't too bad. And people were very nice. They're very hospitable. And as I recall, during the ball game, they had artificial crowd noise. And so they would, when you kicked an extra point, they would just turn it up real loud. And when you scored a touchdown, didn't make much noise, but an extra point was a big deal because they could see the kick going through the goalposts. And so obviously a lot of the crowd didn't really understand football at all. And so anyway, those are some of the memories that I have of it. And the Texas Southern Band was over there, and they marched at halftime and did a good job. And then apparently they had taken some stuff they shouldn't have from an electronics store, and that was kind of an international disgrace. And I think when they got back to Texas Southern, the Texas Southern Band was disbanded by the school president because he was embarrassed. So that was kind of a negative thing. We did a little bit of touring, and so it was one of those things that you do, but you probably wouldn't do it again because it's such a long way to go to play a football game. We played pretty well. Kansas State had a very respectable team at that time, and I think we won by 4 or 5 touchdowns, and we played well.
What was the incentive for that game? I mean, why was it?
Well, I think it was a Kansas State home game is what it was, and we would not have taken one of our home games here. But I believe that there might have been some financial incentive for K-State and maybe for Nebraska. I don't think it was a whole lot, and I don't think that game lasted a lot longer. I remember I talked to Ken Hatfield. I think when he was at Clemson, he had gone over there, and he said some nice things about the trip. And so it's kind of on Ken's recommendation. There were 3 or 4 teams that had gone over previously, and they may have done it one more year after we did that, but I think eventually the game folded. It's called the Tokyo Bowl, and so that's about all I remember about it.